Welcome to Belgrade, the capital of Yugoslavia, and to the 1989 World Judo Championships.
I remember how you announced him as an Olympic champion.
New Olympic champion in the men's under 66 kilos category,
Our world-class commentary team, led by Sheldon Franco-Rooks and Neil Adams.
I'm going to win this by Ippon. I'm going to win it well. And yeah, it was a good day.
Yeah, and that was the historic day for Great Britain, right? Because
First time ever that it's been an all-world championship final between two Georgians. He is for me a great man, you know, and one of the greatest Georgian fighters not to have won the Olympic Games, you know. That's right. Yeah, on top of my head, sorry.
No way.
The warrior mentality. It's the warrior mentality.
warrior mentality.
Come on, Charles.
მოგესალმებით ძვირფასო გულშემატკივრებო. ჯუდოს პოდკასტის დროა, ჯუდო ჭანოსთან, წარმოგიდგენთ ლიდერ სპორტი. როგორც ცნობილია თქვენთვის, თბილისის გრან სლემი არის უნიკალური შანსი, რომ ჩვენ, ასე ვთქვათ, მოგვეცეს საშუალება გავესაუბროთ ხოლმე უცხოელ სპორტსმენებს, ან ჩვენს უცხოელ კოლეგებს და აი ამჯერად ეს შანსი ჩვენ ხელიდან არ გავუშვით და დღეს ჩვენი პოდკასტის სტუმარი გახლავთ IJF-ის მსოფლიო ხმა, IJF-ის კომენტატორი და წარსულში უძლიერესი ჯუდოისტი, არაერთი ტიტულის მქონე სპორტსმენი, ის გახლავთ მსოფლიო ჩემპიონი, მსოფლიო პრიზიორი, ევროპის ხუთგზის ჩემპიონი, ოლიმპიური თამაშების ვერცხლის პრიზიორი და მეცხრე დანის მფლობელი Neil Адамsი.
Yes, thank you.
So Neil, I think you understood some
Some of
points,
it, yeah.
some the most important things, right?
Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much. I know you are very busy.
It's a pleasure.
Especially at the tournament.
Especially for you.
Thank you, thank you that you find the time for us.
Yes.
And you know, sometimes we say in IJF we use IJF English.
Yes. Well, we both use it, don't we? In different ways, you know, with
Yeah.
our broadcasting. Judo is an Olympic martial art where competitors known as judokas face opponents in single combat in a tournament of elimination. Petrie always dangerous! Drops in, Aggie! Oh, he's evened it up! Kosoto, oh yes! Oh, he really pinned that! 2 gold medals for Germany for the big one. But he's got to be careful. Papinashvili can go left or right, and he attacks both flanks. But so does this man. Oh, there it is! Oh, it's gone over! Oh, new world champion. And wow, European champion and now world champion.
Hi, I'm Jack Willingham, the IJF television director. Our world-class commentary team, led by Sheldon Franco-Rooks and Neil Adams, are going to be coming to you live from the tatami immediately after the final block on every day of the competition at all World Tour events.
Here he goes, now then. Oh, it's going to happen! Yes, and he gets it! In the last 8 seconds there, Grigalashvili. Third time winning the world title. First time ever that it's been an all-world championship final between two Georgians. Now it's Mazeradze. Oh, he's done it! He's done it! Mazeradze has stolen it. He somehow gets behind him here. Wow.
Thank you very much. One more time, it's a pleasure for us having you in this podcast. And you know, I said in Georgian, I said that it's a huge opportunity, you know, during the Tbilisi Grand Slam, you know, to speak and to invite in our podcast, you know, the foreign athletes. Sometimes and our colleagues, and especially the persons like you are, you know.
It's one of my favorite places to be. You know, Georgia is one of my favorite places, and I think because of the people and the fighters, the people that I've known for many years, you know, that have been ex-fighters and are now working in different ways. But, you know, certainly I have a really good rapport with the people here, and you know, so I have a lot of the competitors, and you know, your Olympic champions and your world champions, and I think they like the fact that, you know, we're able to give them such good broadcasting, you know, with their achievements, because they, you know, you've got some great champions here, and great people as well. Not just great champions, you know. It's not just about winning the events. It's about how you are as a person as well.
The question like this. So when, for example, okay, you see, okay, now I'm going to Georgia. What are the first emotions or feelings when you know? So now this day, next week, I go to Georgia. What kind of feelings?
Do you know, I think it's the passion, you know, and I think the passion that I feel when I come here, and I mean the passion for the sport, you know, because obviously it's the sport of judo, but, you know, I look at the fighters that you have, and I watch some of the youngsters come up. And, you know, we're talking about Bakaria, who is now, he's only 24, 25 years of age, two-time Olympic champion now, you know, and then your young 60-kilo...
Sardellashvili, yeah.
Sardellashvili.
He's the most young... youngest Georgian world champion.
Yeah. And I mean,
he was 20.
And I was talking to him, you know, before he went for his final, and he was very excited about it, you know, but he also knew that it was possible to make history. And he says, oh, I listen to you all the time, and I listen to commentary, and, you know, but I wish, you know, when I was fighting that I'd had somebody that could do the same, you know, to broadcast it. We didn't have it, you know, in my competitive day. So what happened was when I was world champion, and then, you know, two-time Olympic silver medalist and European champion things, you know, when I won the events, I had to kind of do my own commentary afterwards. That's how it all started, by accident, really. You know, but they wanted, Fighting Films wanted somebody to put voice to the broadcasts that we're doing. And at the beginning, it wasn't about Grand Prix and Grand Slams.
No, it's, what year was that? You remember that?
Back in 1988 was the first European Championships that we did some kind of broadcast on. And then the World Championships followed. But the first tapes that we ever did were really... tapes about, they were learning tapes, really. They were...
Yeah, because I remember your voice as a commentator was, I think, 1989, maybe Belgrade.
Yeah.
Because you are there with, you know, you are like...
Yes.
Welcome to Belgrade. Yugoslavia, something like this.
Welcome to Belgrade, the capital of Yugoslavia, and to the 1989 World Judo Championships. One of them has attacked. Yes, they have. Yuko to the Russian.
I'm very inexperienced, you know, just no real training at it, you know, and I think it was only as I became better at it and able to punctuate and to express. And I think that's the thing about the commentary, is now when I commentate, I commentate with passion, you know, because I really love the sport, and I'm still excited about it. You know, when I watch good people do it very, very well, then I get very excited about it, and it comes from the heart. And I think that's what I really love about the Georgians as well, and the Georgian judoka and the Georgian people, you know, is they're very passionate. It's from the heart.
Do you remember your first arrival, or I would say first visit to Georgia? Because for sure you remember Tbilisi International Tournament, right?
Yes,
but
and
you never fought at that.
I never fought.
You never fought, right?
No, I didn't. It was just one that wasn't on my list. You know, I mean, I fought obviously European Championships, and I fought Georgians in, Harborelli was one of my main competitors when I went up a weight category. And so I did fight.
Harborelli, right?
Yeah, Harborelli.
Our Olympic champion.
He was Olympic champion in 1980, And we fought in the European Championships before the Olympic Games, and the thing is that I was having to decide which weight category to fight in because I was seeded in the weight category below from the previous World Championships. We didn't have a seeding system like we have now.
Yes.
And so I was seeded in the lower weight category. So in 1980, before the Olympic Games, I fought every competition in the higher weight category. I won the European Championships. I won all of the equivalent to Grand Prix and Grand Slams. And the only contest I lost was the final of the Olympic Games on a hand tie on that year. It was the only contest I lost.
Was only one contest
you lost. Yes, just the one.
Moscow
and
Olympics.
The final of the Olympics,
Oh, let's talk more about Moscow Olympic Games. Do you remember that Olympic Games? Atmosphere, it was first time in Soviet Union, right?
Well, I think now, there's 9 Olympic Games that I've been part of, 9 or 10, and every one of the Olympics is different. Every country has their own different atmosphere, and I think that with Moscow, it was still, obviously, Moscow was very different then than it is now, and it was a different time. And so I remember the Olympic Games, very excited about going to my first Olympic Games. I was first reserved for the previous Montreal Olympic Games, right. So I almost made it. I was only 18 and, so I was pushing hard, but quite rightly didn't go. But I went to 1980 Olympic Games, first Olympic Games, and I thought that it was magnificent. Only when I went to Los Angeles did I realize that, there were so many things that we couldn't do in Moscow because we couldn't go into the center of Moscow. We couldn't, there were certain restrictions on us, that we couldn't
it was
do.
Like this, right?
Yeah,
restrictions,
it was.
Restrictions,
certain restrictions. And so, obviously in Los Angeles 4 years later, it was different. It had a different atmosphere, but it was still a great experience.
Yeah, but for you,
disappointing.
Yeah, both of them, right? Silver medals, Moscow.
Yeah,
silver medal, LA. How do you remember finals against? Okay, let's say Moscow against Ezio Gamba.
Yes.
And then LA was against Henke.
Henke, yes.
Germany, right? But at that time was Western Germany. Or how?
No, he was East Germany. He was DDR. He was
Germany,
DDR, and so I had. So I won consecutive European titles in the 2 different weight categories. 1 year at 79, I was under 71 kilograms, and then the year later I won the European title at the higher weight category. So
Total, you were 5 times European champion,
yes,
right? 5 times. It's a unique result, right?
And it was difficult, it was always a tough competition, obviously. It was one of the hardest competitions because there was no easy fight, There was nobody in there that you could say, well, I'll have a warm-up fight. There was no such thing as a warm-up fight in the European Championships. Ezio Gamba was one of my main rivals from
at that time, right?
And I fought him in the final of the European Championships on the same year as that I lost to him in the final of the Olympic Games. Yes, I would have swapped them over.
Same final.
I could have swapped them over. Yeah, that would have been a good one. But
how can you compare these 2 finals? European final and Olympic final.
I think that without making, it's not an excuse, but I think that the final of I went through the Olympic preliminary rounds and the semi-final very quickly and won every match by Ippon, and then we had a long break. And I remember in the Olympic final against Ezio that I just thought, this is difficult to get back into the rhythm. I lost my rhythm, and I had a really good.
I've heard your interview said you went back to the Olympic Village.
We went back to the Olympic Village. It was too long break.
It's true, right?
But it was the same for him. It's not an excuse. It's the same for him.
It's not an excuse because
it's not an excuse. And the thing is that I just remember just being one step behind all the way through and thinking, well, and I just kind of almost rescued it, and it went to hand tie and it went to split decision. He got it. That was it. And, when you look back at things like that, you think, well, what could I have done that is a little bit different, that would have made the difference? But I think you always, you can always look back and think, well, it could have, would have, should have, but, it wasn't to be.
Neil, okay, next Olympic Games, LA. You are again in the final.
Yeah.
And again,
yeah,
silver
medal in the Olympics, and against somebody that was not the favorite to win it.
How we call underdog.
The underdog, yeah. And
nobody was expecting something.
Nobody expected anything, and I beat probably the stiffest opposition in the preliminary rounds, and I think that Frank was just a young guy coming up and took his chance. And I remember fighting the final and leading through the final 3/4 of the way through, and then just made a mistake, and he caught me and for a score, and it was a mistake, And I remember thinking when I just walked off, that was a really big mistake. I remember saying to my team manager, who was a friend of mine, and I remember I was squatting down and I said, I made a mistake. And he said, you choose your moments, to make mistakes. That was some moment, but just one of those, Yeah. Disappointing.
Disappointing, yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not a one would have and I could have, it was just, I had really good results. I had, good results, European Championships, the World Championships.
Let's talk more about the World Championships, okay? And your title, gold medal. 1981,
yes,
correct? And the victory against Japanese Jiro Kase, right?
Yeah, I remember.
How do you remember that World Championships?
I remember the day, as if when I started the day, it was one of those kind of days where I couldn't put a foot wrong, and everything went right, everything was aligned, and I remember just thinking that it's going to take something special to beat me on this day. I just felt everything was good. And so I went through every one of the opponents during the World Championships, kind of knowing that, and I went out to that final as well, thinking I'm going to win this by a pon. I'm going to win it well. Yeah. And it was a good day.
Yeah, and there was the historic day for Great Britain, right? Because you were the first British world champion, right?
British men.
Men. Ah, yeah. But men.
Yeah.
Because for women,
we'd had a couple, I think, of I think Jane Bridge.
Jane Bridge
had won. She was the first.
She was the first
woman.
Ever. Yeah. First ever.
In
British
1980.
judoka.
Yeah.
What time was that?
1980.
80. Ah, maybe
so the
first
ever World Women's Championships. Yeah.
So you were the first ever men.
Yeah.
World champion.
I was. So that was a great moment, and I remember it was one of the only moments that my mum and dad weren't there to watch.
Ah, they were there.
They weren't. So they used to watch me at every other one at the Olympic Games. They didn't go, and then I was trying to contact them, and it's not like it is now, with social media, where you could just immediately go on there and get hold of, you had to ring up and anyway, I couldn't get hold of them for a day. And then they heard on the news that I was world champion. So proud moment. But my dad was my first coach, he was my first coach till I was 16, 17 years of age. And then he kind of thought, well, I've taught him all he knows and I'm going to send him off. And he sent me down to London, like a bit like somebody coming down into Tbilisi, from the mountains to the main centre. And that's what it was there in England. We had the Budokai, which was the main.
Budokai.
Yeah.
This is club, right?
It's a club, but it was a club, but it was the first club of Europe. So it was the first, so Jigoro Kano sent all his disciples out there, into different places.
Okay.
And the Budokai was the first main club in Europe.
In Europe?
Yes, in Europe, yeah. So a big club.
Wow, it's interesting.
And a lot of the main guys were there, the World Olympic medalists that we had were all training at that particular club. Yeah. So it had a great reputation.
You know, now I was thinking about the feeling, you know, double Olympic silver, and then how you found, I would say, the power in yourself, you know, to continue the way, and you was also competing for in this to the Seoul at the Seoul Olympic Games, right? Because you know, I remember, for example, when Varlam Liparteliani was a silver medalist in the Rio Olympic Games
And the World Championships.
Yeah, and the World Championships. Yeah, he was like, you know, I remember him standing on the podium and crying.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you remember also in
Yeah,
Rio Olympics, he was like standing like this and crying, and but it was
kind of
different
know,
for you, no?
I think, well,
But
you kind of know the only event that I haven't won is the Olympic. You know, it's the only final that I've never, you know, won.
Never won, yeah.
And yeah, disappointed, but you know, you kind of. When I look back at each of the Olympic Games that I had one Olympic Games where I was very, very young and I had nothing to lose. I was just a youngster coming up. The second time I had a chance of winning the Olympic Games in 1980, and I knew I had a chance as well. You know, it's one of the favorites. I was coming through very, very quickly. And the third Olympic Games in 1984, I was absolute favorite to win. You know, I'd be world champion. I was, you know, European champion, and I was favorite. So I came in there with a different attitude, you know, but there was pressure. And I think that when you've got that kind of pressure to win, that can put a different kind of spotlight on the thing.
Yeah.
And then the last Olympic Games was my last go at becoming Olympic champion, because it was the only event. And really, I kind of came back. It was the last chance.
Yeah.
But I was a family man, and I had my son was 5 years old, and so I had a different mentality, totally different mentality. And I trained differently for that Olympics. And I remember it was, you know, really I was coming in there not as the favorite, and not as, you know, as somebody that with an outside chance could get a good draw and maybe, you know, would be there. I would always be there roundabout, but a little bit like, you know, the Liparteliani kind of situation.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, he is for me a great man, you know, and one of the greatest Georgian fighters not to have won the Olympic Games. You know, I think, you know, and he will be thinking the same kind of things as me, you know, exactly the same.
Standing on the podium and thinking,
you do. And it's how
you... I could be Olympic champion, but...
I could have. And that's why I say, you know, I could have, I would have. But, you know, I think that when we look back on it now, we have to say that, it, you know, it didn't happen. But, you know, think of the good things that he did win. And think about what a great champion he is, you know, because he is a great champion.
Of course, yes.
And sometimes, you know, just people winning events isn't enough to be classified as a great champion. I always judge great champions by not just the matches they win, but the matches they lose as well, and how they do it, how they handle it.
Neil, how you remember? Okay, let's go back to the London Olympic Games. At that time, he was doing commentator, and also announcing. I
needed you there, you know.
I remember your voice, you know, because I was there. I was in London Olympic Games in this fantastic venue, and you know, when our Lasha Shaudatuvashvili won these Olympic Games, he was young. He was just 20 years old, 66 kilograms. Nobody was expecting, you know, even medal for him. Even medal. Do you remember that?
I remember
him, because he beats Ebinuma, then in the final Ungvari. So it was like, wow. And I remember how you announced him as an Olympic champion. I remember that. I remember.
The cadence in the voice.
Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation for the winner and new Olympic champion in the men's under 66 kilos category, Georgia.
Right, but it is, isn't it? I mean, the thing is that I hadn't announced Before that Olympic Games, because I was a commentator, right? But Britain, they wanted a British voice, for it. And we did have an announcer, and I keep saying, that at the time, didn't we? We had a great announcer. You've taken over from him as, our top announcer for IJF. And, of course, I hadn't done it before, and I was trying to give give it away, to say, no, we have better people to do this. Let me commentate. And, but anyway, I ended up announcing. So it was a great experience for me. But I'm going to tell you now straight, my first announcing a job ever was at the Olympic Games. That was the first time I'd ever announced. And I practiced, and I was practicing in my living room, and
I was practicing.
I was practicing, yeah. I was practicing delivery, and I was practicing, because I wasn't sure how it was going to go, and I remember a terrifying part of it, because I was having to somehow commentate at the same time. So I had an earpiece in.
Yeah, I remember something
and I
like
was
this.
commentating some of the matches in between, announcing them going on. It was just ridiculous.
It
was,
it's difficult.
It was just impossible, right? So it's impossible. And then they came and they put a piece of paper in front of me there, and they said, Mr. Putin and the Duke and Duchess of York and somebody else was coming in, don't make a mistake. They said to me, don't make a mistake.
It's more tension, huh?
Yeah.
Even more tension.
Even more tension, but
more nervous.
But I needed, I need glasses to read things, sometimes I need glasses, and I couldn't find my glasses. And I was doing the, announcing, and I needed these glasses, and I couldn't find my glasses, and I said, I was with Mike Swain at the time, and I said, Mike, I need my glasses, and he said, we have to do a picture. He said, we do a picture first. We do a picture, like this selfie. And Mr. Putin and all these people were coming in, right? And I was like, 15 seconds, we're going to announce it. He said, we'll do a picture like this. And I said, no, not now, because we were trying to get through this together. Anyway, so he did this selfie picture, and we did the selfie picture. And my glasses were on top of my head, like this. That's right.
Glasses
was
on
top of my head. So
no way.
Yeah. So I literally pulled the glasses down and made the announcement, But, when they say don't make a mistake.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah. So we got the picture, though.
So nice memories.
Nice memories.
From London.
No, it was good.
How do you remember Shavdotuashvili? How do you remember him?
I just, I think he is...
Young guy.
That man... is and the same as Bukuri as well, always very gentle and a gentleman, always very respectful to me. And I think that he's been a great champion for you, Shavdotuashvili. I think because I've seen him lose and lose well. Not that you have to lose well, but he's always very respectful for it. If it's close and he doesn't react in a bad way. Disappointed, yes, but he reacts well and he handles it well, and I think that is an important thing, to be able to do that, And so I watched him become a champion. I've watched him retain a world title, to win a world title in a different weight category. I've watched him, develop and become, he was at the time Georgia's most successful judo man.
Right.
And he is a great champion for you. But for me, that is the epitome of being a champion, being able to do it as a winner and also to be able to handle it well. I remember somebody saying to me, you have to be able to, because everybody's looking at you. And, the youngsters look at you as well, and if you're a bad loser, it's not a good thing.
Okay, one question about, there's, I've seen some kind of competition. You are there. It's, how I call it, pull-ups.
Oh, superstars. Yeah, well, we had a program in England.
You won this competition, right?
Yeah, well, different gym exercises and then chin-ups. Yes, just full extension chin-ups.
You were very strong, but maybe you are still strong.
Still strong. I try to be. I still try and stay in shape, and I like to still work out most days. And, you know, so I think most judo fighters, if you take a judoka, because of the physical strength and the endurance that you need and the power that you need and the physicality and the mentality, that normally most judo players are able to do other sports quite well. And so we had a program there that you cycled and you did gym exercises and you swam, you know, you did different sports. And so most judo people did quite well in them. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Okay, so the most interesting thing also it's you as a commentator. So you said you started in the late 80s, right?
Yeah.
Late 80s, 90s, 80s, 90s, right?
I have this amazing relationship with fighting films. Fighting films work very closely with IJF, as you know, and you work with them. And they're great people, right? They are great people.
Amazing.
And their mums and dads were great people as well. And their uncles and their aunties and their, you know, it was a family
it's
thing.
huge family, yeah.
Huge, and
huge
you know,
history, yeah.
Every time, you know, one stage came to an end, or, you know, poor Simon Hicks, who started it, you know, unfortunately he got cancer and we lost him. And his nephews and nieces and sisters, you know, Kim is his sister, and they all have been involved in the broadcasting side of it. And I got involved with them at an early stage. So I've known them for nearly all their lives. You know, 30 odd years, you know. And so we did the first ever voiceover. They asked me to do a voiceover for one of the training tapes. And so we used to do the European Championships, each individual category, and I'd do the voiceover for it. You know, it was very, it took ages, actually, a long time to do.
Ages, right.
Yeah. Right. But we did each of the different categories, and I'd do every fight. But it wasn't as commentary. It was more as a narrator. And then I got into, they said, oh, would you commentate? Can you commentate a match? And so I didn't really have the intonation then. It wasn't, I didn't have the expression. And that was something that came a little bit later. And then I remember somebody saying to me, they said, when you commentate, just do it from the heart.
From the heart, yeah.
Do it as you feel it, you know, and so I did that, and most people like that, you know, because I get excited about it. Yeah,
of course. I remember you're commentating first ever Grand Prix Tbilisi 2014, I think.
Yeah,
it's on the video you can see on YouTube also.
Yes.
You remember that,
11
right?
years ago. Yes.
Yeah.
11 a long
years
time.
ago. 2014.
Amazing. Here we are in Tbilisi in Georgia. We know they've got a great tradition of fighting within the country, and we can see the depth that they've got. But not only that, we can see the fighting spirit, not just from the guys that are on the mat, but also from the audience. The audience, every time a Georgian twitches, you know, everybody stands up and they're all part of it. And they're not necessarily fighters themselves, but they're part of a fighting country, if you wish. And, you know, it's so great to...
Yeah.
When you were, but this one was in the old Tbilisi, old sport arena.
I remember it, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I remember. I remember thinking. I remember watching it and thinking, mainly men in the audience. Just the way that was just. It was just mainly men in the audience, right? and I remember, we were first time in there, and I had my Belgian team, and they were in there competing. But it was great, you know, because it was the beginning, and I've watched a progression over the last 10 years plus, and it's a real progression, not only of the judoka, but also in the manner of which it's changed. I think you'll agree with me that, I mean, Georgia is it's developed and changed, you know, and I've watched it through the years. It's been interesting.
And also, plus also now more women are interested
that's,
in judo.
And look how judo's changed.
If you look at the audience also, you can see.
Yeah. Is that
girls
because...
are coming, watching, interested in.
Well, I think the best thing that ever to happen for judo is the team event that they've put in now. So it's equality, and so there are 3 men, 3 women's categories.
Mixed team.
Mixed team events at the Olympic Games. Yep. And of course, it means that Georgia, who are great team competitors, you've always done very, very well in the European and the World Championships for teams.
Always.
And as soon as you had to have equal men and women, some of the women's programs in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Georgia, they had to bring their women's programs up. Look at how women's judo has developed in those countries just in the last 5-10 years. It's amazing.
Yeah, especially Uzbekistan. They have now
an Olympic champion.
Olympic champion.
Yeah, I mean,
Diora Kildiorova, very strong. Yeah.
And really strong, but
we have Eterli Parteliani, also very strong.
Well, I mean, she was one of the first, wasn't she? And she was throwing like the men. She were bigger and aggies and big techniques, and she was one of the first to break through and really to lead the way for ladies judo in Georgia. And I think that now, of course, I think Georgia wanted to get back on track to be, competitive at the Olympic Games, which they will be. Of course, you will, because your ladies program's coming up.
Yeah, and progress. One question about Georgian men's judo. What do you think? What is the main power of Georgian judo? The main weapon, how to say? Yeah,
I think
the
warrior mentality. It's the warrior mentality.
Warrior mentality.
And that's the only way that I can explain it. That. They're fighters and now technicians as well. So they have good technicians, but they fight. That if, whenever I fought Khabreli, I knew it was going to be, a real battle and that I was going to have to fight right to the end. And I think that every fighter that you put out there, every judoka is ready to go to battle. And ready, and they fight, but they fight with passion. And I think that is a key point as well, because, it's one thing coming out there and following rules and into combat, right? But when it's a passion as well, then there's a difference. And I think that's the best way that I can explain Georgian judo, and all the guys that are there at the moment, and I'm talking about the guys, women as well, you see them come out there and they really want to win. They're desperate to win.
Yeah, desperate to win. This is the most important thing, I think. And passion, desperate to win.
Yeah.
To be a warrior.
Yeah. Desperate. And I think, I've watched some real battlers and some fantastic judokas. The style has never changed that much. It's always big hand over. And, obviously the wrestling traditions have created their own style.
Georgian wrestling, I think.
The Georgian wrestling, when they go up into the mountains and they pull them out of the mountains down into Tbilisi, But the great thing is that we've watched their judo develop as well, because a little bit like the Japanese now, we see the Japanese, we know that they have depth and they have brilliant judo, and it's probably, from a technical point of view, it's more traditional.
Yeah,
classical.
Traditional, classical.
But now we got some of the Japanese doing some of the katagurumas and some of the uranagis and some of the big techniques that the Georgians are doing. Georgians are doing beautiful judo as well. So, I think judo is going up.
Up. Neil, in total, how many Olympic Games for you as a judoka? 3, right?
3 as a competitor, and then
competitor, right?
2 as with different teams. So I was GB at the '96 Olympic Games as team manager, and then I had 4 years with Belgium. but I didn't come to the Olympic Games with them. But I had 4 years with the Belgian team as team manager. And then as announcer, I did London, and I've done 6 Olympic Games now, including the Paralympics, as a commentator.
So totally
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a
A
lot
lot of Olympic
experience.
Games, and every one of the Olympics has been different and a different experience, you know. And I can honestly say that a special, you know, I thought that Brazil was very special, you know, because it had that different feel to it, you know. But London was very, I wasn't sure that London were going to do it well. They did it great, you know, and I think that every one that I've ever been to has had something special, you know, and I think the only disappointment that I had at any Olympic Games was Tokyo. And that was simply because we had the pandemic, we had no audience, you know, and so that was a big disappointment, you know, and I think having an Olympic Games behind closed doors was pretty tragic.
Behind closed doors, it's really...
It wasn't an Olympic Games, really. It was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't. For me also was, you know...
Yeah, it's very strange, wasn't it?
You know,
Yeah.
the feeling was different.
Yeah.
Neil, what about your family? Let's talk about your family. You have 2 grandsons, right?
2 grandsons, yeah.
All the time you were traveling a lot. You're always, you are doing all judo tour events, right? So you are always, how to say, away from the family, right? But let's talk just a few words about your family.
I have an amazing family. You know, I'm just blessed. I have my son he's now 38. You know, so he's older, and the twin boys came from him, and that was a surprise. You know, we didn't expect twin boys. They've been, you know, amazing for our family, and we have 2 beautiful daughters who are 22 and 20. And so they're on their path. One is still at university. The other one's at the moment in Australia. So she's touring Australia.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I have an amazing wife who was, you know, we 23 years married this Saturday. So,
oh, really?
So I'm away for the wedding anniversary. Yeah, so that hasn't gone down too well.
But you are in Georgia. This is
we're in Georgia, and
you can drink.
Yeah, but I left some flowers there as well. You know, so she is but in secret. Nice. But anyway, 23 years, 25 years together. But she's also a judoka, and she was at the '96 Olympic Games for Canada.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so represented judoka. So she understands. She knows. And it is difficult. I have to say that the hardest thing out of all of this is not the work. The work is a pleasure, you know, but it's just being away from family. Yeah. You have the same? Is the same for you?
Oof, it's really
sometimes
difficult. Yeah, no, always difficult.
Yeah,
always difficult. You know, to be away from the family. But when you coming back to your family and have some time, you know, to spend with your family members, your wife, daughter. I have 1 daughter, so.
I have my father is still alive, and so my dad is 92.
Wow.
So he's the only guy, you know. So I phoned him on his 92nd birthday, February. So I telephone him. So wherever I am in the world, I telephone him, and I couldn't get hold of him. And so he's still on his bike 4 times a week, still, because he was a cyclist and a judoka.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay. Cyclist.
So he's on his bike in the garage, you know, for 1 hour, and I couldn't contact him on his 92nd birthday. So I'm lucky that he's still really healthy. Yeah, fantastic.
Neil, you said your family, you are from a small, we can say like this,
small town. Yeah,
name is
Rugby. Where
from Rugby?
Yeah, where the sport of rugby started. Yeah, so Rugby School is 800 years old. So it has this old school there that's nearly a millennium old. It's so old.
Do you know what rugby means for Georgians, so
I know.
We are,
and it's getting bigger and bigger,
crazy
isn't it?
about
It's crazy about rugby. Well, the sport of rugby started it at the school. Webb Ellis.
Webb Ellis,
Webb Ellis. All right, so rather than kick the ball, he picks it up, and he runs with it.
So this is legend or
no, it happened.
Legend?
Yeah,
it happened,
I just
how can you say about that?
How can we say? We just
it's legend or more.
No,
more
it
reality?
was. Webb Ellis was actually a member of the school. Whether he just picked it up and just ran with it or ran out of the school, but I don't know.
He scored it. But he did a try, or how say he?
He tried to do something I don't know, but it was. It's a great story, and he has a picture of him picking up the ball, and you can go around the school and you can go into where it happened. See it exactly.
So maybe one day we can visit.
When you come, I'm definitely going to take you there. Promise. Okay. Yeah, it's not far. It's if you come into Birmingham and
it's near to Birmingham.
It's very near to Birmingham, and I'll pick you up. We do it.
Okay. This will be like not a secret, but like the thing we must do. Well, one day. Why not? We never know. We're
definitely going to do it.
Neil, the last. Okay, we are going to closer. How to say to finish our podcast, and maybe you have some message to Georgian supporters of judo. What can you say? How can you address them? Some message to the Georgian supporters or judo crazy people from all around the world, not only Georgia, but as we are in Georgia and in this judo podcast.
Just carry on being judo crazy. They do it in a nice way. The supporters, the audience here is also fantastic, and you can tell that they love the sport. And you can tell also, when you have fighters that fight at home, they get a big advantage, from the crowd. When the crowd is supporting them, it's a big advantage. And I just, just be as you are, because the Georgian people, are always come across as nice people, full of heart, and, it reflects in their judo as well.
This time you find the time for khinkali, tsvadi, these kind of things, Georgian wine.
I don't drink anymore. I used to say no, I don't. I don't drink anymore. So I choose a bad time to stop drinking. It was about 16 years ago, but so I would. I would.
And last, any advice to young judoka, the young kids, young generation, young people? Why they have to start judo? How can you?
I think judo is an education for life. I really believe that as well. I think Jigoro Kano, he said that judo is an education, and if you take the values that it gives you, if you go through and have a look at the values and how judo works from a technical point of view, that will help, I think, you as a person develop, and so, the etiquette and the respect. And I think the respect is a big thing, being respectful to everybody and to your parents, to your family, and respectful to your friends and to whoever you're fighting. Everybody that I fought in judo is now part of my life in one way or another, so I've got some that, Ezio Gamba, we ran the London Marathon together.
And really? You ran London Marathon together?
We ran the London Marathon together as well. And we went
Who won? Neil.
That's a really bad point, right? Okay, that's a really bad point. You shouldn't have asked that, all right? But I went out too quick, right? Because I was trying to break 3 hours. And he'd never beaten me in a running race, ever. But he beat me in that London Marathon. Anyway, that's it. Thank you, George, for that. So,
sorry for this question.
We also,
we will cut this.
Frank Vinica, I was doing the German Grand Prix. And I was walking through where all the shops were upstairs in the break, and his whole family are up there, you know. So he calls me over, and I'm doing pictures with his family, and then we had dinner together, you know. And so I think that friends for life, you know,
Of course,
and we experience things that nobody else has experienced, you know. Be respectful, and for all the youngsters that are starting judo, nothing comes easy. You have to work hard. You know, it's all about how much work you put in. So train hard, and, you know, natural talent's not enough. You need more.
Great. I think it's time to finish, Neil.
It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure, big pleasure. Thank you very much. So for me also, first time I was doing this podcast in English.
Oh, you did great, mate.
I think
you speak
this
great.
is okay.
No, you
I think
absolutely phenomenal.
We can how to say, we can manage this, you know, to maybe voice over something or put Georgian subtitles. Then we will see. Okay, it was fantastic for me, you know.
Fantastic
I was nervous
for
a little
me
bit.
too. Yeah,
nervous a bit because Neil, in my podcast this that, but you know, we're very good friends. It's an honor for me to have you in this podcast.
And it's been my pleasure as well, George. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Გადმოვირთვით ქართულზე. Oh, finally Georgian. You remember this? Gaumar Jos.
Jos.
You remember that? Gaumar Jos.
Gaumar Jos.
Yeah, this is Georgian, like cheering, you know,
yes.
when we say many times, and also in the venues we're doing this. Especially, also we say this when we are saying some toasts, you know, or Gaumar Jos.
Gaumar Jos.
Yes, like this.
Perfect.
დიდი მადლობა ძვირფასო მეგობრებო, დღეს ჩვენი პოდკასტის სტუმარი გახდათ ლეგენდარული ბრიტანელი სპორტსმენი, მსოფლიო ჯუდოს ხმა, კომენტატორი, მსოფლიო ჩემპიონი, ევროპის ხუთგზის ჩემპიონი, ოლიმპიური თამაშების ორგზის ვერცხლის პრიზიორი, მსოფლიო მეცხრე დანის მფლობელი ჯუდოში, ლეგენდარული ნილ ადამსი.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one historic selfie. Like this.
We got it, George.